Today's guest is one we have been so excited to bring to you. Deanna LaRue, who founded TimeWise Financial at just 24 years old. Her love of money began when she was a cashier in her dad's bingo hall. She quickly became comfortable with money and learned how to leverage and invest, purchasing her first investment property at a mere 19 years old while she was a student at Kennesaw State University. It is Deanna's joy to turn her passions into businesses and help others do the same. Throughout her life, she has learned that when you take a clear vision, driven by a purpose that is meaningful to you, your life will feel more fulfilled and energized. Deanna is a wife, a mother, and a daughter. She is Santa Claus, the tooth fairy, the toilet paper fairy, and the clothing fairy. A friend and leader who clients rely on to manage their life's savings. Her goal is to help other highly driven, successful women who juggle multiple roles gain financial confidence through Boujee Boss Lady Financial Coaching. Here we go. Deanna, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Miss Brittany. So excited to be here.
Well, let's just cut to the chase. Deanna, you and I connected through a speaking coach that I think has been working with you because you're doing amazing things. I was introduced to this gal totally randomly. And then all of a sudden the worlds come together and this gal was like, you two need to talk, you need to meet. And I don't know what magic is going to happen. And I feel like it was just love at first sight. You know, we come from the same world, but different worlds at the same time. So Deanna, can you share a little bit of your background? You're helping women to do amazing things when it comes to their finances. And I want you to talk about how you got to this point.
Yeah. Well, I started a financial planning firm when I was 24 years old, and I'll be 44 in May. But I didn't just know that I wanted to be a financial advisor at 24 years old. I was in college for finance was my major, and one of my finance professors at the beginning of the semester, my final semester, said, at the end of this semester, one person will get a full-time paid internship at this financial planning company that was helping us manage the college mutual fund. And so when I turned in my final, he said, "It's you." And I had completely forgotten what that was. Like, what's me? And he said, "Well, you got the internship." So I became a financial planner's assistant. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know. And that's crazy to think that I was a finance major and I didn't even know of such a thing as a financial planner at that point in time. So when I was doing that as the assistant, I lasted about 8 months and thought, okay, I can be the planner. So that started my journey towards that path. Along the way, my dad was an entrepreneur, but he had a full-time job as well. He was in real estate, renting properties. He owned a bingo hall. So he had taught me, I was doing QuickBooks by age 15. I was cashiering at the bingo hall. I was helping renovate his rental properties, watching him go to work full time, watching him go to school when he needed to learn something. So I think all of that was really embedded in my money story and led that path to me now having commercial rental space, two rental lake homes. I started an Irish pub. It's been open for 15 years now. So, and that is one thing, if I had any piece of advice, it's funny when clients come to me and say, I think I want to retire and open a restaurant. I'm like, that is far from retirement. So be very, very careful. If you're looking for freedom of time, don't open a restaurant.
So my parents have a restaurant as well. And yes, they're married to it. And I think it brings up such an interesting thing because as people they go through life and they go through this journey, if they don't have some level of guidance or sounding board or somebody to help them make informed decisions, it's amazing how quickly life can get off track or they find themselves in something where they're like, oh my gosh. So Can you talk a little bit about between the work that you've done in the financial planning space, between what you're doing now with, because I want you to talk about Boujee Boss Ladies and all of that. How are you helping people or helping women in particular to shape their paths?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned bougie boss ladies. So, as I was working through the last 20 years working with various clients, and you can choose, who you're more passionate on working with. And so I would work with widows and very quickly realize that I'm crying with them. So I'm not as good with that. Or divorcees. I haven't been divorced. My husband and I have been together for 24 years. So it was harder for me to relate with that particular situation. Now, can I financial plan for it? Yes. For the bougie boss ladies, financial planning is just different for them. Often they are very highly driven, successful entrepreneurs or business execs, and they can find themselves in a very lonely space at the top because if you're going in as the leader and maybe you're just nervous, about the business, you're overwhelmed with managing all aspects of the business. You're supposed to be the motivator for your team. So if you go in and your energy's low, then they're going to feel that from you. So you always have to be on. But then who's motivating you? And so that is what I strive to help provide for my bougie boss ladies in their journey to financial confidence. Because also, what I see a lot is they're the ones that all of the family members and friends come to for advice. They're the reliable ones doing the planning. If a loved one passes away, they're the ones stepping up, like, I've got this, I can figure it out, even if I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of them are raising kids, running the businesses, nurturing their marriages, and that can just be a lot. So they're often putting themselves last and putting their financial planning efforts, their financial confidence last. And they're the ones that most often need it most. I just see them hiring accountants, and it's like, take this tax stuff, you figure it out. And I think while we hire experts, including myself as a financial advisor, that is good, but you should still have a 30,000-foot view of education on what you're doing with your money, your hard-earned money, your life savings, and what the goal of that is.
Yeah. The one thing that we talk about here quite a bit in the Trailblazers is the messy middle. And it can be defined by a few different things. But, as you're explaining the women that often show up in your world that you're supporting, there a lot of times they're juggling so many different things. They're growing a business and they're often in that mode of they've hit a level of success. They're making good money and they're living a certain lifestyle, but they haven't had the financial education to know, like, okay, well, how do I make sure I'm really smart about this? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, the whole saying out there, entrepreneurs are great at making money, but they're also really good at losing it because they're not super, what do you call? They're not risk averse. So they're constantly going in and just going all in on what they're doing. So there is this certain module of making sure that you protect the wealth that you build, but then also they are dealing with family and all the things that are happening in life, and they don't slow down to take care of themselves. And so I think that's what's so magical about what you're doing is you have the background, you have the 20 years of the more detailed planning, but you've also done exactly what you're helping teach women to do. So that's a testament versus somebody that goes on, I'm just going to say it, some of the social media platforms out there and gets advice from some person that's saying, do these 5 things with your finances. And I say it a little facetiously, but it happens. Like people go and make decisions off of influencers and you're sitting back
Yes.
going, what just happened? What are you doing?
Yes, I see that all the time. And I actually have a tagline on some of my marketing. Don't take financial advice from someone not in that ballpark, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because I see it a lot. There's a lot of manifestation. classes and courses and money story courses. And you're right. I have always strived in my business to, if I'm going to suggest an investment, for instance, I personally invest in it. Anytime a personal life experience happens to me, for example, after 20 years of being in the business and having all of my rental properties and the grind, one day I was laying in bed with my husband and I just said, when is it going to be enough? What is our enough that's going to make us want to stop this grind? And the more we talked for both of us, it really isn't about the money. We like the grind. We're driven people. And so from that point, I decided for myself, it was a realization I need to have, and I created something called the baseline bucket. I need to have my baseline bucket set up for retirement, knowing that I've got my debt goals, in check. I don't want to have mortgages when I retire, knowing how much money I need to have in my retirement bucket to continue to live the lifestyle that we're accustomed to, knowing that I've got the kids are going to be driving soon, so their car fund set up, and knowing that I have all of those baseline buckets established for me, and then teaching other women. Obviously, if I arrived as a certified financial planner to that epiphany of like, how long am I grinding this out? Then others are feeling that way too. So then teaching these women the process to at least have that financial confidence in knowing that every month I've got savings goals where I'm meeting my baseline buckets, all of the extra money, because what I often see is my bougie boss ladies when I interview them is, well, we spend what we want because a lot of them came from humble beginnings.
Mhm.
So we want our kids, or I want myself to have the things that I didn't get to have when I was growing up. So I buy whatever I want. And I trust myself to go make that money back again. And then another thing that I hear from them often is, well, I'm never going to retire. I love working. And so my challenge to them is to think about, well, what if you don't have that option? What if something happens to your spouse that you're also financially dependent on? What if something happens to your health? So we need that security. And that's really what I think money, or main purpose of money in this world, is to provide some kind of feelings and experiences, some freedom and security.
Yeah. You brought up a couple of themes that keep coming into my head as you're talking. And one of those is you're an action taker. You are somebody that I go back to what you just said a bit ago about even your internship and how you were there for 8 months and you sat back and you're like, wait a second. I can be that person. Like I am that person. And you go back to your real estate investments and your journey in the financial planning and now into Bougie Boss Ladies and all of the great value. You've just gone into things with a really strong mind and strong confidence. So where does that come from? I know you mentioned your dad and the entrepreneurship, but there's got to be something intrinsically in you too.
Yeah, I call it, I run and jump off the cliff and then I figure it out. So it's like having my own accountability partner. I've already jumped off the cliff, so now I'm stuck. Like I'll just launch a website. I'll launch a product that I'm not ready yet for, but then I put that pressure on myself. That's good and that's bad. My husband always tells me the scariest words that come out of my mouth are, so I've been thinking, because he's like, oh my gosh, are we opening a restaurant? Are we buying another business? What is she getting me into? So
Yep.
I think, yes, I just like I mentioned in the interviews with my bougie boss ladies, the word is trust. I trust myself. I know that I'm disciplined enough to stick to whatever I'm putting my mind on. And I know I'll make it happen because I'll do the work. So, and that didn't just fall in my lap, that natural confidence. It's the trials and errors of failing on the flip side too. Of I'm a serial idealist, and while I've got 6 companies, and while they're all running, I still have 20 other ideas that I've squashed because they didn't work out. So I think there's just that happy medium of just get out there and try it. Some of them are going to happen, some of them aren't, but you're going to learn from the ones that don't.
Yeah, I love that. Jump off a cliff and then figure out from there, like what's going to happen. And you're like, well, there's a couple different scenarios. The parachute's going to deploy and it's going to be fine. I'm going to find something soft to land on, or I'm going to crash and burn, and then I'm going to have to pick myself up and figure it out again. So yeah, I think that is so true telltale of an entrepreneurial spirit. There is so much opportunity out there. And I heard this saying that as you're looking at life and you're assessing maybe the overload, and again, it's like two peas in a pod here. I shared with you before, and I don't think I've shared with our audience, but under one of my most overwhelming times, my husband and I are like, let's buy a nursery and floral business that just came up for sale in our hometown. And I don't know anything about that stuff, but I channeled my inner, who was it? Marie Forleo wrote the book, Everything is Figure Outable. And I was like, that's right, it is. And we're going to figure this out and we're going to do it. I think about now, I totally lost my train of thought because that's just what we do around here, squirrels.
No.
So where I was going with it, Deanna, is that you've taken so many chances and you've had such great success. And the saying that came to mind was, it's not about saying no to the things that don't interest you that create success, right? It's actually saying no to the things that you want to do that helps you hit this new level of success. So do you have a filter for yourself, for all of our opportunist women out there, for all of them who are juggling multiple businesses, who, like you said, you've got 6 under your belt and you've got 20 more ideas that are parked over here? How are you going through and filtering that decision process?
That's a great question. And I've really started to slow down on my ideas. Like I said, I'll be 44 this year. I have a 14-year-old who's going into high school next year. He plays every sport known to man. So just driving him all over the place. And then I've got a 12-year-old daughter who comes with those embedded emotional changes that start to happen and really caring what others think. And so I actually made a huge change this year. They're both in middle school for this one year before my son goes to high school. I've had a nanny, and I decided I don't want to have a nanny anymore. It's time for me to mom up more. It's time for me to be the one that when they're doing homework, I'm in the thick of it with them, because I think one of my strengths is organization and structure. And that's a legacy that I need to teach them. So how to be organized with their schooling, because I'll tell them, when I'm helping my daughter study for her social studies test the other day, like, you're not going to need to remember all of these dates of different wars for any job unless you get into history. But you do need to learn the discipline that the school is teaching you of getting up with your alarm clock, eating breakfast, going to school, doing the grind. I do feel like I'm at this beautiful time and season of life that I can choose what I want to do because I did the grind. I paid my dues. I saved money well. There's a difference in getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. And yeah, I like to have nice things, but we've got to be careful with those impulse buys that we want to have. So, like a squirrel, but back to your question of really how am I filtering through those ideas? Now that I've put myself more in mom mode, more in nurturing my marriage after 24 years, like I'm just being very selective, and I have to constantly tell myself, like, no, 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 don't buy another Airstream for that wedding venue park idea that you have. Like, no, 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 because I can do that. I can reinvent myself at any point in time. Now I just need to chill I need to take some time to reflect on who I've become because society gives you a checklist of goals when you're younger, like graduate high school, go to college, get married, get a career, get that house, have kids for some, not for all. But then it's like, then what? What do we do? And we're going to evolve. We're going to change. Our wants, our needs, our likes, our interests are going to change. But if we don't take the time to reflect and figure out who we've become, then and that's not going to be it's not going to be an enjoyable life. So this has turned into my reflection time, this passion project of Boujee Boss Ladies that I've been doing with the photo shoots. And that feeds my soul. And I'm just starting to do more of that, the things that truly feed my soul, because I'll have that brainiac idea at night or 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, like, oh, I should open another business, and be like, okay, sit on this for about a week. And most of the time I'm like, I don't have the time to do that.
Yep.
Just chill. You're okay with what you already have going on. Why do we need to add more?
Yeah. All I keep thinking as you're talking about this journey is this ever evolving self. And I've always said for a long time now, not always, but for a long time, I'm an and kind of girl, right? I'm somebody who is, I am this and I am that. And I think that that's such an important thing, especially for women. No matter how successful we are, we can feel like we have to fit into the mold that is somebody else's expectation. And I think this is something that we continue to, I don't know if the word is fight, but evolve from. Whether it started with early age with your parents about what it means to be a good girl or to be successful or whatever is set. I think back, I joke about this now because of where my journey has taken me, but there's a lot of weird things, but there's two weird things that kind of pop out. And I would say one of them is when I was in school, I just remember going through the motions. And I say this with compassion for those that are not in this situation, but school was really easy to me, but it was also really boring. Like I remember sitting there and I would be like caught in my own thoughts. So I got through high school and that was all fine and good. And then I went to college just because exactly like you said, it was just what you do. And so there was nothing I was super passionate about in college. I changed my major, I think 4, maybe 5 times. And then I landed on business management because I was like, I know I like people and I know I like business. And I don't know where that comes from, the business thing, because I really didn't have that in my family per se, but that was an interest. And again, you go through these motions and you land in a place, and there comes a point in time where you do have to do this self-check of, well, who am I now? And I think it's okay to evolve. And where this backs me into is I think as women also, you mentioned how it can be lonely, how you get to a certain point and there's this loneliness that happens. And I think for women that we both have supported, and even us in certain ways, you get to a certain level of success and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, some of my friends that I had along the way, they're not here anymore. And some of my family maybe isn't around so much anymore. And whether it's from maybe a level of resentment for your success or whatever the case may be. So if you were to be talking to a woman that looked at you and said, I don't know who to go to, like, I don't even know who I have anymore, what would you say to them?
I asked the exact same question. So I had a business coach for years, and then she turned into be one of my best friends. And so she stopped charging me for coaching me because I was coaching her too. And we would just do these workations together. But I asked her one time because when I felt myself get to a point where my core group of friends that I've had for 20, 30 years, they know so much about me. They're the ones. I lost my mom last year, and when I looked up at the funeral as I was speaking, I just felt so grateful for those core friends. They show up. So I remember asking her, like, I'd hear her talking about these different groups of friends. Like, well, this is the girlfriend that when I want to party, I go hang out with her. Like when I want to talk business and growth ideas, I hang out with her. When I'm more family oriented, talking about my kids, I hang out with her. And so it was because I was thinking in my head, do I just need to go rehaul my entire friend group? Because that wasn't making me feel good either, but I was definitely lacking. When one of my rental homes, my lake homes, flooded, the people who didn't truly get me were like, "Oh, you poor thing. One of your lake houses flooded." Well, for me, that was devastating to my rental, to my time, to everything. It just threw a big wrench in it, but not everybody got that. And so I would say to start to complement those groups of friends. So it's you need your core people, you need your ride or dies by your side, and they need you. So you make a space for them. They're not going to get the struggles. Maybe your conversations are a little different, but then you find friends that complement that missing void that you have that help you to feel not so lonely. Like my public speaking coach introducing the two of us. I was like, I don't know why she wants us to meet, but I think we should have a Zoom and check in. And it was like, oh my gosh, when you finally get to talk about all of the struggles that you have as a high achieving businesswoman, it feels so good. You don't feel so lonely. So my advice would be to compliment them, to find, don't go to the local networking groups where you're the one giving all of the value adds there. Start getting into the networking groups where you feel like you don't belong. Like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Because these people are on it. They've got it all going on. That's where you need to be because you need to be lifted up with them. And then you don't feel so lonely there either.
Yeah, I love that last part too. One of my mentors said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that's
Yeah,
really what you're just saying there is I can say for myself and so many amazing, incredibly talented people that I know is the biggest growth has come by just throwing yourself into a space that you're looking around going, I have major imposter syndrome all of a sudden where
yeah,
you're questioning, like, do I deserve to be here? And that's a whole other episode that we can unpack on why we don't need to think that way.
sure,
But
sure.
it's a real feeling. Like, that's a real feeling when you walk into a space. But when you lean in fully, and I will say this, regardless of if you are joining into like the Boujee boss ladies and going through that course and you're meeting some people there, or you're coming into the Trailblazers community, or whatever it is that you're going all in on, go in as your authentic self. I can tell you so many times where I walked into a space in my earlier days where I felt like I had to be something that I wasn't. And that can be a really dangerous thing because then all of a sudden you might find great opportunities, but the opportunities aren't necessarily you. And so I think that if we can peel back those layers and just come in authentically and say, hey, you know what? This is who I am. This is what I think I need right now. But I want you to shoot holes in it because maybe it's a totally different direction that I'm not even seeing yet. So whether you're preparing for yourself financially or you're building your business or you're just trying to restructure your life, I think that all of what you just led up to, Deanna, that's really what it is. It's like go in, be authentically yourself, and trust your journey enough to know that you're on this path for purpose. There may not be a reason for everything because I think there's really crappy things that happen, but there's purpose behind it all that can be found. So I will get off my soapbox there. But before I ask my last question or so, Deanna, how can somebody get a hold of you, follow you, maybe consume some of your content? Where do they go? What do they do?
Yeah, the best place right now is through Instagram, and my handle is Boujee, Boujee. So sometimes people don't know how to spell that. There's different versions. So Boujee, Boujee Boss Lady Official. And on the dashboard under the link in the bio, there is a place that you can sign up for. I do a 6-month masterclass. It starts in January. So this year's already closed. But what I found and why I started this masterclass is the bougie boss ladies, the women like us, we're so busy. And so if we don't have time, if I had someone who got laid off or lost a loved one, they're willing to come to my office and sit with me for as many hours as I need. Well, when we haven't had that traumatic or that fire under our butt to get moving with getting organized in our financial life, we're like, oh, we'll do that later. We'll do that later. So, and because we don't have the time to do it. So, my goal here with my masterclass is to break it down into bite-sized increments each month. And so at the end of the 6 months, you having that sense of financial confidence and that 30,000-foot view of education that I mentioned, and a lot of action items to take. So that would be the best place to find me. And there's some other resources on that page as well.
That is awesome. And the one thing I'll say too is when you're busy and you're grinding, like we've talked about today, when you're in the grind and you're building your business and you're running your household and taking care of everybody around you, it can be really easy to set that stuff aside. So I think having that dedicated time and space to be able to say, hey, I feel confident that I can make great financial decisions for my business and for my family and my life, that's something to be said. So, Deanna, my one question before we go is, what haven't I asked you that I should have?
What haven't you asked me that you should have?
I love it. I love it. It's funny. I love putting this question in front of people because it's either like an immediate, like there's something that's been lingering on their tongue, or it is oh, I think you've asked about everything.
Yeah, you've covered a lot. I'm trying to think of any epiphanies that I have out there for you, but
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. So maybe if we reframe it this way is, as we've talked about your own journey, as you've shared how you support people, if you had to give a successful woman, like just chalk it up from all of your own life experience, all the businesses you have, you've got the restaurants, you've been in the financial planning world for so long, and now you've evolved and you're helping people that truly like call to your heart. What piece of advice would you give a woman who's building, she's grinding? What would you say to her? Someone in the messy middle.
Yeah, I would be careful of I got to one point in my life where I'd gotten myself into so many new projects that I felt trapped. And it wasn't just with the projects. It was with I love being a mom, but sometimes it's like Groundhog Day where it's important for my husband and I to get up and have family breakfast with the kids. And so when they aren't on the same school schedule because one's in elementary and one's in middle, or one's in middle and now one's going to be in high school, we get up and we make breakfast twice then. It can, you feel like you're in Groundhog Day, you can feel like you're trapped. And sometimes you just want to run away. And so my advice is sometimes I do run away.
Okay, I love this.
Sometimes I'll tell, and whether that is just going and booking myself a hotel room or going to one of my rental properties for 2 days or even one day, I'll just tell my husband and my kids, like, I'm going to cook you breakfast and then I will be home in time tomorrow night to cook you dinner. Otherwise, like, I am feeling that I need some alone time. That's not with a friend. It's not with a family member. It's not with my husband. And I will run away. And so that is okay. That would be my advice. Like, when you're feeling like that, I don't think when I don't actually run away, I don't think I'm serving any better purposes to the people around me versus me just coming back after at least a night and feeling refreshed. So I guess just listen to your body, listen. Your burnout is real. Anxiety, mental health issues is real. And so just have some grace for yourself and take some time for yourself.
Yeah, I have never felt more seen and heard than that statement. Like, it is okay to run away. And literally, even if you can't, like, let's just say you're in a situation where you can't go for a night or whatever the case is. I can tell you there was a recent scenario with all my kids and my husband and some extended family, and I was like, I need 20 minutes. Like, that's all, just in this little part of time. And then I'm going to come back to join the festivities and everything. But I needed 20 minutes. So I literally got in my vehicle. I drove to the nearest coffee shop in the town we were in. And then I came back and I had my coffee and I had some peace and I listened to music that I wanted to listen to for a minute and I was okay. So whether it is a quick reset or it's an overnight or you know what, take yourself on vacation for a week. No matter
Yep.
what that is, I think, Deanna, that is incredible advice. And let's just call it permission to the women out there who I know are feeling it, who need to get that escape. So that was a beautiful ending.
Thank
Deanna,
you.
thank you so much for all of your insight today. It was truly a pleasure. And I know our audience got so much out of it.
Thanks for having me. It was a good chat.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up today's episode of The Trailblazers. We're going to catch you right back here next time.